Hello, welcome to the Well-Watered Life. I just wanted to introduce you all to a dear friend of mine from church. Her name is Susan Verstrate. She's our secretary at Faith Community Church here in Kansas City. And so I wanted to share or introduce her to you so that she could share a unique love that she has. Susan wrote a book. It's called Your People, Stories from Church History. And she has compiled in this book stories of people of the faith. And she has a love for biographies. And I wanted her to talk to you guys about how she got started. And we're going to record several videos, and she's going to just introduce us to these people. She did a retreat a few years ago and just introduced us to these people. And she said they're like friends, that she just knows them well. And so I wanted her to share with you guys. So let's get started. Susan, thank you for being willing to do this. And, if I have never read a biography, what's an easy way to start? So if somebody just says, yeah, I'd like to start reading biographies, where could they start?
I think a wonderful way to start might be finding some of these good videos. This one's about William Wilberforce. It's fascinating. It's a dramatized video that it was well made. It's called Amazing Grace, and it's old. See, it has a Blockbuster sticker. So it's been a while. There are some others that I really like. I love Martin Luther's, the one called Luther. That one's excellent. It's a great dramatization. There's one about C.S. Lewis called Shadowlands that was excellent. These are just a starting point. So you might, for example, you might listen to this one that I love. Watch this one. It's about Marie Brandt, who she was a doctor in India. And when she went to India, they said, we need you to specialize in a certain area. And she said, anything but ophthalmology, because I missed that rotation when I was an intern. And so then she got her assignment, and it turned out that they put her in ophthalmology because God uses weakness, right? She was a missionary doctor and became a world-renowned expert on ophthalmology as she served the people of India. So when I watched that, and then I found her biography, A Vision for God, which was fascinating. And then her son wrote Pain, the Gift Nobody Wants, which is a biographical story about his work with lepers in India, that he was born there and worked with his mom. So anyway, that's been a life-changing book, by the way, his vision of how pain is really a good gift from God. It keeps us from hurting ourselves. So that's one way to get started on a roll. You find a movie or something simple like that you really like. My next suggestion would be to take books like, here's one called The Great Escape. It's about 42-page biographies. So, and at the end of these are discussion questions. So someone could read this to their older children. They'd be introduced to the characters. If they found one of the characters fascinating, then they could find another book like we did with the Brands. But even if you never did get another book, you've got 40 people that you're introduced to, and you have discussion questions to talk to your children about them. And that's one of the best things about biographies, is learning from other people's lives so that you don't have to either make the same mistakes, or you could be challenged by what they've experienced. And Faithful Women and Their Extraordinary God by Noel Piper.
Good one.
And this one's another good one that I like, Legacy of Faith by Lydia Brownback. So these books will all be on a list that Sarah will be able to post later on, along with this link, so that you might be able to see some of the easier ways to get started in reading biographies. Those are great.
Okay, so what's the next step then? How do you find the next biography?
I'm glad you asked.
You want to know all about it. What are the steps here?
Okay, well, let's say you just you just watched the Wilberforce movie,
Okay.
right, that we just talked about. Then you might read this tiny biography by John Piper about William Wilberforce. See how skinny it is? But it's really good. William Wilberforce was an important figure in removing slavery in England. And so it would have been pre-Civil War. If you like that one, here's the thicker one by Meta Texas. That's really good. It goes into more depth. In that book, he'll talk about his relationship with the slave owner, John Newton. So you might find Brian Edwards' Through Many Dangers, which talks about his life, about Newton's life. Of course, Newton was best friends with William Cooper. And so, so you can read this one or another biography of William Cooper. Also, one day when Wilberforce was talking to some of his friends who were literary people in England at that time, he said, wouldn't it be good if someone started Sunday schools in these certain areas? That's a real need. And so Hannah More responded to that. She and her sister Patty started dozens of Sunday schools they were for children and adults, and they taught people who didn't know how to read and gave them, there's a couple of biographies of Hannah More, but she was on Women in High Society, and she just found it empty and left that literary world and that high society to go and teach children. There's a story about them where they went, the elders of a church came to them and said, would you go to this town? We're all afraid to go there to teach the gospel. Would you and your sister go? So there are these little old ladies that go in and they set up a Sunday school, and it does fine. They have people that come after work and they learn how to read. They're able to better themselves, but they're learning to read from the Bible, and the Bible changes people's lives. And so, so that was a fascinating. I have another set like that. Okay. One of my favorite biographies is Arnold Dallimore. Anything he writes is gold, but this one of George Whitefield was the first one that one of the first biographies I read, and it was excellent.
Now tell me the author of that again.
Arnold Dallimore.
Dallimore. Okay.
Dallimore. He wrote. Well, here's Susanna Wesley's biography by him, and he wrote Charles Spurgeon and Susanna Spurgeon too. And there's another one, Charles Wesley, I think. So. So if you start with Whitefield, he was sponsored by the Countess of Huntingdon. She was the money behind the First Great Awakening. There was a great revival in England and in the United States and in Germany and Scotland just before the Revolutionary War. And she was a very rich lady who dedicated her money to God, because what else is there to do with it, really? I mean, in eternal value, she gave all of her money away to. So she hired George Whitefield, Selina, hired George Whitefield to be her personal chaplain, because he was not allowed to preach in England because he wasn't Church of England. He was nonconformist. So we're going to go down a rabbit hole here.
Okay.
So
I'm with you.
Okay. Selina paid for George Whitefield. George Whitefield and Charles Wesley, this is another Dallimore biography, Charles Wesley and John Wesley were all the three major preachers in the First Great Awakening. And so you got Charles, and after you do that, you can read about his mother, Susanna, which is also a Dallimore biography. And Susanna's fascinating. You would think, okay, both her sons became preachers. She must have been a really godly woman. Well, she wasn't ungodly, but she wasn't, in my opinion, wasn't a believer until after her sons were grown and out of the house. She had the form of godliness, but not the heart that wanted God more than anything. But after she found grace, her life changed. And it's fascinating. Their father abandoned them at certain times and came back and was very shallow. He was the end of the line of a very rich family. There was no money left, but this place in society was left. And so it was the most important thing to him. In spite of all that, his family were all converted soundly, and they were part of one of the greatest movements in history, the First Great Awakening. It's a fascinating story. So while this is going on in the United States, Jonathan Edwards is preaching some sermons like Sinners at the Hands of an Angry God. And the United States is waking up in this great awakening as well. This is, if you can find this book, it's out of print now, but Marriage to a Difficult Man is Sarah Edwards, his wife's story. And it's so good. He was brilliant, one of the greatest minds ever. But if he had to put groceries on the table or had to keep an appointment, he was lost. He needed Sarah.
Needed that helper, right?
He needed, right, suitable for him. She was suitable for him. And so Whitfield came to visit them. Whitfield came to visit Sarah and Jonathan, and this is like a puppet show.
You know.
Okay, he stayed at their house and then began to pray for a wife because he saw what Sarah could do for John. He wanted that in his life and did find a lady that he married. So we're not at the end of the pile.
This is so inspiring though, because no life is discounted. I mean, the money behind, you just never think about that. Somebody had to pay money, you know, and so you think about all the resources or the treasures or talents or time that you have and how God can use it for something small but can be big, you know, whatever way brings him glory. So yes, keep going here.
Everybody had to eat, right? Everybody had. Okay, so Jonathan and Sarah invited a young man to their house named David Brainerd, and he was engaged to their daughter and became engaged to their daughter. And this is his life and diary, and there's a big one and there's a little one, so whichever one you'd like to read. But he did die of tuberculosis in their home, and then their daughter caught it and she passed away too. It was a sad story, but the insights from his story, this one links to Jim and Elizabeth Elliot, because he read this book and that's what inspired Jim Elliot to go on the mission field. So it's like a spider web, you know, that you can see God's hand is doing this and God's hand is doing this, and God has put this person in this place for this particular reason in this particular season. And when I see in history, I can see that happening, then I want to look at my church and my life and see, how is God moving people in and out for the right reasons in my church life and in my that's one of the things that biographies can give you. They can give you a big perspective on how God moves.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Wow. Oh, thanks for sharing that. Well, guys, we have a lot more in store. We are going to, Susan's going to share with us the people that she's met, the people that she has grown to love as she has read the account of their life. And so I want her to share those people with us so that we can meet them and we can grow to love them as well. And so she's just going to give us a little taste of some of her favorite biographies. And we're going to start with Lottie Moon and Darlene Deibler Rose. And so just stay tuned, and we will kind of have a little series here, maybe of biographies that we can share with you guys. So thanks, Susan, for giving us an intro here and how they can get started. And yeah, so we'll connect again soon.
Okay, thanks, Sarah.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Mm-hmm.